What can you as an agency leader or sales leader or producer learn from a multi-million dollar producer? In fact, a producer who was fired early in his career only to have the success that he has now. Well, we're going to talk on this podcast episode in my interview with Mark Shipp about mindset and what that really means, about consistent processes, and about the fact that everything he does is not about him. It's about serving the needs, the wants, the desires, and the outcomes of the other person. Enjoy today's Agent Leader Podcast. Welcome to the Agent Leader Podcast. This is the podcast for agency leaders to learn, to grow, to develop, and ultimately become their best version possible. On this episode, I have a fantastic guest with me. Someone, in fact, I told him before we started recording officially that I hear a lot about. I feel like I know this guy because he's been part of our organization in different ways, long-term relationship with our founder and CEO, Roger Sitkins, and has grown a very substantial book of business. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But welcome to the podcast, Mark Shipp. Mark is the senior executive VP at Hub International. So Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, again, we're going to talk about a lot of different things with Mark's experience and successes and challenges. And I also know he's someone who has accomplished a lot, but wants to give a lot back. And I know he'll be able to share some of that on this podcast. But Mark, before we get into all my extremely challenging questions for you, please provide the audience some background, maybe your history in the business, a little bit about your book, your specialty. I'd love to share just some background information on you,
Sure.
what you do.
Sure. Well, insurance is a family business for me. My mother was in the insurance business her whole life. I worked my way through college with a variety of jobs, specifically one in construction that I really liked towards the end of my college career. And, I was pre-law and thought I wanted to be a construction lawyer, decided after doing an internship at a law firm that I needed to pivot and do something else. So I worked for about 6 months. My mom looks at me and she's like, Mark, I think you'd be really great at insurance. Farmers are supposed to have a decent training program. Why don't you go check them out? So I begrudgingly did and went over there and kind of, was there for a year, found insurance to be fun and challenging and rewarding, and got my first insurance job, commercial insurance job, after working for farmers for a year, working with my mother and the agency that she was working for. And started off somewhat successful, but not really. Ended up getting fired because I didn't produce. I had a desk and a phone book and go sell kind of support. And my mom, she was very technical, but she wasn't a sales oriented person. She didn't know really, it was all about the coverage forms and being a super coverage guru geek. And that was kind of her thing. And that's how she would say, I'll make them hurt and show them where they've been misinformed about their current insurance program. And that's not the skill that I could have starting as a new producer, and didn't really have any, management, and didn't really have any kind of support structure. It was just that, here's your desk, here's your phone book, go. And, started to really, become a student of insurance at that time. And, but really the focus was how do we get new business? And, after I lost my job with that firm, I worked in the car business for about 6 months.
Okay.
And it taught me professional selling skills. You do, feature, advantage, benefit, presentation, all these strategies and tactics for selling cars to people that didn't know they were going to buy them that day. And, different ways to approach strange people and to get them to entrust you, and get them excited about that car, and I found it to be somewhat fun for the period of time I was doing it. And after getting fired, I was like my ego was bruised. You know, going into the car business, by the second month I was their top salesperson. I sold like 30 cars in 1 month and got the biggest cash bonus you could get at that time. And I was on fire. So I was like, yeah, this is time for me to really start looking at the next insurance agency.
Right.
Went to uh, another brokerage, American Pacific Insurance Brokers at the time, and they were small agency, marketing oriented, and they gave me a tiny draw and said, we've got these programs, and we've got this and that, and we'll give you this marketing support. Go.
Mhm.
I read this book at that time called Insurance Commander. It's written by a guy named Baxter Dunbar.
Hmm.
And he talked about having a process, having, doing a diagnostic risk questionnaire, having a process. And I followed this book to a T, and it helped me just absolutely explode at that time. So I decided to focus on tree care companies at that time.
Mhm.
Just had the marketing support of that agency, and I was a road warrior. I just wrote all kinds of business and had a great time, had great success with my process. And then what I discovered at that time was it was good to have a couple of areas of specialty. At that time, it was meat distributors and processors and tree care companies. And I could, it would, because me being a little bit ADD, or a lot, my wife would tell you. So it made it so it was more interesting to have a couple of different markets to play with and have fun with and dominate, and have, so you could really build out your process for each of those. That agency got into financial trouble, ended up finding Ogilvy Hill Insurance, was a producer there, and they provided equity in the book. I turned equity in the book into stock in the company, ended up becoming a third owner of the agency. Two brothers I had were that were my partners. Didn't get along that great, and one left, and I became the president of the agency. We sold to Hub, almost 15 years ago now, and it's been a great success story working with Hub. It's just we kind of have a moniker of having a boundaryless agency, and that's perfect for me because I'm able to extract resources to the benefit of our clients from all over the country, and it's so fun and just great people. It's a people business, and I love working with great insurance people that love their clients, and that's really been my focus.
Yeah, fantastic. And as we get into stuff, I hope that the audience heard like, oh yeah, I started insurance and I got fired. Because where you're at today is pretty incredible. And again, I don't know how much that you want to share, Mark, but I've mentioned you built a substantial book of business.
Yeah.
Right. And you've talked about some of the failures already, or at least early on, the learnings you have. And so I'm gonna ask this question maybe in two parts or however you want to do it. First of all, I'd love for you, if you want to, share with the audience kind of what you've been able to grow into, because I think it would say a lot of people that I talked to earlier, like, well, I don't know if this is going to be for me. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I'm good enough, and what's possible. And then I also want, if you would, we talk all the time in our programs. I mentioned Roger Sitkins talks about you and the mindset shift and the story of Grande Gringo, which is from your trips you had in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've had some mindset shift changes. So, I guess put these together. I'd love to hear kind of what you've grown to, like what it looks like today, based on some of your past situations you just mentioned, and a little bit about the Grande Gringo story, because Roger talks about you guys having chicken wings. And talking about life and business, and I want to get your perspective because I always hear Roger's side of it. I want to hear how true that is. So share some of that if you would, Mark.
Sure. So I think that if I'll start with the Grande Gringo stories,
Okay.
Gringo Grande.
Okay.
So, we were part of the Sitkins 100. Roger put together with Mark Rollins, a group of interested agency owners that were part of the Sickens 100. And what an amazing opportunity that was to give back to, and really start, there was a start of becoming a global citizen and really understanding the plight of other cultures, other countries, and just the people and how absolutely awesome they were. Well, the average Nicaraguan is about 5'2", and they see me walk in the door, I'm 6'7", and they're like, they're bewildered. And we're out here, we're in 90+ degree heat with whatever humidity index was, and we're, hand mixing concrete and throwing brick. Well,
Right.
we're throwing brick with these Nicaraguans, and I don't think they ever saw a gringo work that hard, and I'm able to throw them, hand them bricks very high, and they're like, they were just amazed by all that. And it was super fun, and just really rewarding from their perspective of what kind of impact you have on the family. So,
Right.
your ticket to the game to go to this trip was to support the organization there at Bridges to Community in building one home. And you'd build a home for this Nicaraguan family, and it would provide them with shelter that was hurricane proof for generations. And keeps them out of the dirt, keeps them out of, disease infested, areas, and, just some much more clean living. So that was extremely rewarding. And they came up with the name Grande Gringo for me, and I would go back there today and they would still remember me.
Wow. Yeah, we and just again, the audience won't know this, but we do our producer fit program, which is our sales training. The very first session, Roger opens with a story because it's about changing your thinking.
Yes.
And these clicks. And he has a picture, Mark, of you standing there with a Nicaraguan child, I think, but the size difference of him on your shoulder, and it's a really cool story. And so now I gotta ask the next part. Did you guys actually have chicken wings somewhere and talk about your next click of business and what that sound like?
So this Roger story is two-faced. So
Okay.
I talked Roger into going fishing with me before one of our training camps, and we went fishing, and I was just kind of about close to 900,000 in revenue in my book at the time.
Yep.
And I had some kind of like internal like head trash about, well, when I get to the million, what am I giving up in my life? Will I still be able to have that balance and blah, blah. And I started having all this, am I trading this for, balance in my life and yada, yada. And, really it was just getting through the fear, the false evidence appearing real, and once you take the borders off and your limitations off, and you really focus on others and what you can do to make a difference to not only your agency, but your clients. What is it that you can do to be a resource to them that they can't live without? And then understanding their business better than anyone, you're able to assist them make those businesses better. If your focus is to make the business better, everything else changes. It's like you're connecting them with resources that are not insurance related. You're connecting them with things, and the focus is about, when you have an industry like the tree care industry, my focus is very simple. Let's keep companies from killing people. And to me, that's very simple, but very, it's very impactful.
Yeah.
And what can we do to make, and I know the work I've done, a lot of it's not measurable, but a lot of work that I've done in supporting the industry in tree care has prevented that. Different programs I've helped create with, industry associations and different, things. And it's what we say is our goal is to utilize both our internal and external resources for the improvement of your business. And if we can't do that, there's no reason for you to talk with us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well said. And it's interesting, and when I would talk to very successful producers like yourself, Mark, and again, part of this is building multi-million-dollar books of business, it's like, oh, and you talk to some people that are struggling, and it's like, well, if I just do enough of this or this or this, and they get stuck. And there's part of that. And what you're getting to is the mission.
Yes.
The why behind it.
The why. Yes.
Like, why does this matter? Because, well, if I make this connection, and I want you to speak into this, not me, but if I make this connection or this extra touch or build this relationship, I can help this person, this organization to accomplish things and move them forward in places they couldn't without me.
Exactly. Exactly. But back to the chicken wings. So it's chicken
yes,
wings
please,
are two-phase. So
yes.
the two-phase. So we're having chicken wings together in Fort Myers, and we're having this conversation after fishing. But the one of the most memorable times over chicken wings is after we were there with our week. We're over this, at this kind of palapa style restaurant, and they're with the whole group of agency owners, and it's overlooking like the Nicaraguan volcano. And you would have thought we were in the Sahara Desert for a month. I mean, the piles of chicken wings that we ate, I mean, just absolutely so hilarious. And the 60-cent beers that we would have there, it was like it was such an amazing afternoon to kind of just like relax in this palapa style restaurant and gorge on chicken wings and beer. It was so fun. I mean, it was such a memorable time.
Great. That's great. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, to hear that again, your side of it, because Roger talks about it, and just, I mean, the impact they had on him, and obviously, these multiple conversations, but that one but I think you hit it, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, Mark. So I'd love to hear, I think you've kind of said it in a different way. I did a podcast a while back, and the way I expressed it was, it's not the thing, it's how and why you think about the thing. And meaning that the thing is important. That could be the action or the specific process. Those things are important.
Yes.
But how and why do you think about it? Because that ultimately, to me, is what's going to drive the behavior. Without that belief in it, you're going to get tired, frustrated, worn out, feel like it doesn't matter. And I think, to your point, have a whole bunch of self-limiting beliefs or excuses of why either it didn't matter, it wasn't important, any of that. So
right.
What's your take on that, Mark? Agree?
I totally agree. And I think really what's really like having an agency like Hub has allowed me to think more globally and to act more globally for the organization and for myself. So removing all borders, anything is possible. It's up to your imagination on how you implement it. And that to me is an exciting thing every day that I look forward to. And and really it's a different model of servant leadership. Yeah. And really it's about serving the clients in a different way. It's not about selling them insurance. The focus is making a difference. And how can we do that with what we do? It's having a process, really. So we have a very defined process that we utilize with our clients that help us to, make the process easy for them. And, being an industry experts, it really, we're able to collaborate with clients in a completely unique and beneficial way.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And we talked a little about this before we officially started recording, but I would like you to speak in this a little bit, if you would. You talk to like high-level producers and agencies and say, is it about money or is it about winning? Now, of course, winning can mean a multiple things. And every time it's like winning.
Yes.
And we talked before, and again, part of this, and there's other producers that are in this boat too, that at this point, writing another account's not going to change your life.
No.
But so let me ask you this: why do you do it today? Why are you still seeking and learning and asking and growing? What's the mission and purpose behind what you do today, Mark?
Well, it's about being of service of others. It's about looking at the legacy that I'll be leaving behind in the insurance industry one day. Yeah. It's about a mission, the mission of supporting reduction of catastrophic injuries and death.
Mm-hmm.
And then just overall, it's impacting lives of people that you are doing business with, and putting people in your consciousness that you want to make a difference with, and just really focusing on them. And it's very rewarding, and it's way beyond, the financial piece. It's really just, hey, let's make a difference here. And we have a platform to do it.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of nobility in our profession that says, hey, I know the actions that we're leaning towards are preventing people from dying and those families being impacted.
Mm.
I saw an article just yesterday of a company that hired a brand new employee that was not trained, that ended up becoming a double amputee.
Jeez.
And that's what you think about,
Yeah.
hey, if I see the characteristics and the behaviors of a particular company that I think is going to kill somebody, I'm going to tell them flat out, I'm not going to do business with you. I'm not. I'm sorry, you don't get a ticket to the game with that behavior. And really, and the number one characteristic I look for with an organization that matches up well with us is, how do they treat their employees?
Mm.
If the employees are happy, if the employees are going to pull the oars in the direction that they want to have happen corporatively, they're going to perform better. Mm-hmm. They're going to embrace changes. They're going to do what's necessary to make that for them. They don't have to have everything right, but they love their employees and their employees love them. That's the number one characteristic I see that makes them better.
Yeah, I think it's again so powerful, and it's interesting to me. Not surprising anymore. It probably used to be years ago. I'm like, oh, wasn't he focused on the next account and the next? Well, no, I'm focused on my mission and my purpose. And I love the fact, like what you stated. I think I forgot how you said it. Like it's let's keep companies from killing each other.
No, let's keep companies from killing their employees.
Or their employees. Yeah, their employees. And part of that's like, oh, well, that seems pretty, basic. It's super powerful, super impactful.
Yeah.
And there's meaning and purpose behind it. So I think there's so much to learn from everybody, from myself, and hearing that. What I'd like to go to next, Mark, is that I know that on your road to success, and you continue to evolve in that, there's probably been a challenge or two or a frustration along the way. So yes. I'm not going to ask you to list all of them. We'd be here for a while. I know you've got things going on, but if you would think about a top challenge or frustration, either you've dealt with in the past, mm-hmm. maybe you were able to overcome it, or maybe you're dealing with it still today and you're still working through it. What jumps out at you? And again, obviously the audience we have here, what could they learn from it?
So, we take the mindset that I've had about serving others, serving the industry itself. And then one of the things that has never happened before I launched this 3 years ago was a homogenous group captive for the tree care industry. And that is something that really took dogged determination over 20 years of trying. And what I'm saying is, if you have a purpose, if you have a passion and a direction and dogged determination, you don't give up, you can accomplish those things. And now it's been in existence for almost 3 years. It's a tree care specific captive called Ascend. It's the best insurance facility ever put together for the tree care industry. And it's for the benefit of them and the industry itself. And so that's what I'm talking about, is giving to them, giving them a platform to be able to achieve higher profits, to be able to achieve, and really it was what kind of a side thing that I really didn't realize how powerful this was going to be. But when we have the meetings, the information sharing, the the togetherness, the camaraderie, the learning, the relationships that are being built because of this. And we get to have these meetings, once a year with all of our clients in this group at one time. And it's so fun. It's great. It's rewarding for everybody. It's a dream come true. And that's really because of dogged determination and focus, because I knew it could happen and just needed to happen. The things that needed to happen were changes in attitudes from industry owners, mechanization, and better safety records. That took a time to develop that. But, we're having generational changes in ownership, different changes in ideas about how they treat their employees. And, they're seeing better results than they ever have in that industry because of that.
Yeah, again, going back, I mean, there's certainly a tie into all of this, and it's just back without a mission or purpose. And what really hits me is a mission and purpose about who? It's them.
Not me.
It's right. It's them. And this quote's been around forever, and it's probably overused, but I love it, from Zig Ziglar. If you help enough people get what they want, you can have anything you want.
Yes.
And, I think I first heard that quote when I was like, kind of starting my career. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Help people.
My favorite Zig Ziglar, and I use it all the time, is your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude.
Yeah.
Because we can get punched in the face every day in this business. It's a hard business. Yeah. But if you're focused on the service of others and you are sharpening your craft, you understand, always take into consideration how you are being perceived by the person on the other side of the Zoom meeting or the desk. How are you being perceived? And if you were talking to you, how would you perceive yourself? That to me is insight. That to me is, I'm a CEO. What do they want to see from me? And how do I calibrate myself to that? Understanding the psychology of a CEO or a CFO. We talk about matching a mirror, we talk about understanding, but really it's I'm able to say, when we're being a former business owner, that, hey, I understand what it's like to walk in your shoes. And I don't want somebody to come here and sell me insurance. My focus is about, what can we do to make your business better doing what we do? And how can I connect you with some, my internal and external resources to help you achieve that goal?
The central theme comes back to, again, everything I'm doing, I'm creating, I'm building, is all to serve someone else.
Yes.
And some people, that sounds basic. It is, but how many people do it?
Right.
And I think there's so many lessons in that. I want to add one more thing, because what you said hit me on from a leadership perspective. I heard this quote years back as well. It said, leaders see more and before others. And part of a leader's job is to have that clarity and vision of, I see it. I don't know actually how it's going to all work out yet. I don't know.
Yes.
But I see it. And when you talked about 20 years of determination and persistence, my guess is you probably got kicked in the teeth or punched in the mouth, or whatever term you want to use.
Yes.
Many times.
Yes.
So how did you, part of it might go back to your mission and purpose, but what helped you persevere through that? Because most people do quit.
Right. Well, it's just knowing that that's a temporary obstacle. And that if you really believe in what you're doing, it pushes you beyond that. I mean, if you look at any kind of, and what I categorize it as research and development. If you can categorize it as research and development, and it's like, oh, well, and then you take a backward look at, what did I learn from that failure? What can I use from that failure to make it better the next time? But that's what research and development is. It's a series of failure after failure after failure after failure after failure until you get to the success.
I hope those that were listening that weren't driving wrote that down, because there is such power in that, Mark, of the difference of, and I'll use my terminology here, I made a mistake, and most people go, "Oh, I suck. I'm not very good. This will never work." Versus, wow, what a great learning experience.
Yes.
Wow. And I
And
heard, go ahead. I'm
when you
sorry.
turn it into the learning experience, it takes a negative and makes it a positive.
Yeah. 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 I was going to share, I said this to an earlier call with someone. I said, I remember, I forgot who said it, but like, some people see me today after all these years and they go, wow, this is the guy standing on top of the mountaintop. Because if they only knew this entire mountain was basically poo. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I just decided to stand on top of it instead of getting inside of it. That's the only
Right.
difference. I just kept climbing
Exactly.
out of it, right? And it does go back to your thing on attitude, right? That all comes back to attitude and beliefs.
Yeah.
One of the things, because I want to get this next, kind of some of the learnings that you got from Roger and the Sitkins experience. You mentioned the
Sure.
100, but one thing Roger always talks about, we talk about as a team, it's beliefs, behaviors, results. And a lot of people talk about, this is the result I want. Great. Okay. What are the behaviors? Oh, I'll do this and this. Okay, but what do you believe about those behaviors? Because if you don't believe in them, we said this earlier, you'll probably up and quit or find something else or find a reason to, be discouraged in some way.
Right.
So, all right. So I want to ask you, because how long have you known Roger officially then? Because I go back to some of your trips to Nicaragua.
It's gonna like 25 years, if
Okay.
not longer. Yeah.
Okay, so 25 years, and obviously, just being associated, and I've been with Sitkins for 7 years, so you know it way longer and more than myself. But I'm always interested and curious from your perspective, what have been some of the biggest principles, or maybe it's a strategy, or maybe it's a mindset that Roger or the Sitkins 100, the Sitkins process has taught you over the years?
So it's really about so to me it was how to cultivate business and really utilizing the Sitkins systems for business cultivation that was much more in keeping with a professional mindset. And that to me, and having the previous knowledge that I had from reading and adopting the book, The Insurance Commander, it gave me kind of the insight. And I was ready to have, something like that for, for me and our agency. So when I became a partner at Ogilvy Hill, we needed some kind of a track to run on that was very succinct and specific and was focused on growth and retention and all those things that we talk about. And it was a perfect plug and play for us as an ownership group at the time to set us in a strategic direction that really worked for my principles, for their principles, and made us better. And having the group that we had to make friends with and to share ideas, and it's very similar to that thing I talked about with the group captive. It's really about sharing. I mean, I made so many great friends through the Sitkins 100. That was absolutely amazing. But really, it's having a defined process. It's having you know having being different. Who wants to look the same as every other insurance shill that's trying to sell insurance? And really, if we're focused on really, used to call it the risk reduction approach. The risk reduction approach was a selling tool that was basically what we call the set offense.
Yep.
That's morphed and changed over time, but having a set offense, that was really key and critical. And then really focusing on what's your role? What's your role in your agency? What's your role in the development and of new business and retaining business, and making sure that there's a line between sales and service. Because how many people get stuck in the service trap? They don't have an understanding, and it was the greatest thing to come back to the agency after we talk about doing takeoffs, landings, and in-flight emergencies. That's what I'm doing. And like, oh, what is that? Well, let's figure out exactly what that is. And having that attitude, and then really all of those things together, it just have really made a huge difference on my career. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Roger.
Yeah. Well, again, he speaks obviously so highly of you. And just from this discussion, I was talking before we started recording, like, I feel like I know you, but I don't. And obviously everything you're saying here resonates, right, with the beliefs and the things that you're doing. And yeah, I mean, the set offense, it's interesting. However, that's executed. I use a lot of sports analogies, probably way too many, but you can go out there to the court or the field and be like, yay, we're going to be great. And I'm so excited. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Just do your best.
Yeah.
And by the way, and you know this, could you get away with that a little bit? Sure.
Sure.
It's just really hard to repeat and replicate and continue to grow upon it. It's like,
Exactly.
I gotta win here and win here and win here. Another thing too, you talked a little bit about the idea of this high performance team or sales or service. And there's so much of that we see still. I mean, in the industry of, yeah, well, I can do everything. And you said the word knowing your role. Can you speak into that a little bit? Because I think some people still struggle with that. Like, well, shouldn't I still be doing more of this and more of this and more of this? Because I
Yeah.
can. But what have you learned
This
through
is,
that?
I mean, so still, I mean, I still grapple with it. But it's something that where you're checking yourself about what it is you're doing on a daily basis, and really where's the impact that you can have on your clients and your team by focusing on your unique abilities, and having people around you that have different unique abilities to support you where you're not strong.
Yeah.
And to me, I'd rather have my heads up in the cloud thinking about what's the next big problem I'm going to solve.
Yep.
And if
Yep.
I can do that, it gives me that, satisfaction. That gives me that, real, enjoyment of this business. When you get drawn down into tactical little things, it's like Roger goes, it's an energy sucker,
Yeah.
How many times have you seen Roger do that? It's
Yeah.
take away the energy suckers and actually feed yourself with those activities that you're really great at. And it's not service for me,
Mhm.
so having great people around me that are focused towards, serving our clients, making it a great experience for them, it always, everything works well.
Yeah, and when you say that heads up in the clouds and thinking, like part of that is you're thinking and devising big picture solutions on some things that are critically important to these businesses.
Right.
And part of that is because you freed yourself up. And my last silly sports analogy I used too much, I said, I've never seen, at least so far, on a football team where the person snaps the ball to themselves and then drops back and throws it down the field and runs and tries to catch it themselves.
Right.
Oh, and could you do it? Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. You could try it, but there's a reason there's specific roles, and there are people that are really good. In football, you got these big offensive linemen, like they're really good at that. And you've got skilled people that are really good at that. And guess what? We're all accomplishing the same goal. Let's get to the end zone, but very unique in how we do things and very effective and efficient versus I'll just figure it all out.
Right.
Yeah, which can be really, really, really difficult. All right, Mark, I have one final official question and anything you want to add. All right, my favorite question I ask every guest on the podcast. And I don't know how far you want to go back. It's up to you, whether you start your career or at some point your younger version of you. Okay. So we can go back to the beginning, but you can tell me if there's a certain spot that you like better. But the beginning of your professional career, you're walking down the street today and you happen to bump in to the younger Mark Shipp, who's just kind of getting started in this career path. And he looks at you today and says, okay, I've only got 30 seconds. You've been through this. Can you give me one piece of advice that would be most impactful for me today? What would you say?
I would say don't be focused on the commission, focus on them. Everything else will come to you. And if you're not going to pay your grocery bill this month, if smell you needing the account, you're gonna act in a way that's not in accordance with what you need to accomplish. Like, selling a client on cheap price, whatever. The focus needs to be different. And if I'd learned that sooner,
Mm.
It would have been very helpful.
Wow. I love that. And I get so many variety of answers, and there's probably more than one, but I love that. And I just wrote down, like, no matter what, do what's best for them.
Yes. And sometimes, and this is something that I learned from my mother on the first day I was in commercial insurance. And she said, Mark, you always do what's best for your clients, even in spite of them sometimes.
Ooh. Good ones. That's fantastic.
If you lose a client because you were doing the right thing for them, so be it. You can sleep at night.
Right. Right. And somehow the universe works where typically that also lends to success.
Somehow, I don't know.
It's like just do the right thing.
Yes.
The people that you care and serve, right?
Exactly.
Novel concept. I'm glad. See, we got through 45 minutes to get to that point, but it's true, and
Yep.
it's so powerful. And I think it sets an example to have a conversation with someone like yourself that's been through that, had success, to come back to go, hey, don't complicate the simple.
Right.
Don't complicate the simple. Well, before we depart, and this is up to you, Mark, I'll leave this open. Anything goes. Anything you want to add to the audience or want to share before we officially depart on this episode?
So I talk about specialization, and I've got, a couple of different areas, and there's a reason why you don't want to focus just on one thing. I would suggest focusing on two disparate markets, because you can have down cycles in, revenue generating activities. Like, when we had, there was when we had the market turn down, the construction industry just kind of went away side. And then we had people that were focused in construction that basically lost all their income. So you need to have kind of a look at your book of business in a way where you've done a little dollar cost averaging yourself. And the focus is, to me, I've got three different pots. I've got tree care, I've got casinos, and I have what I call custom accounts. Custom accounts are anything I want to write that fits the behavior model that I want to do business with.
Yeah.
And I would say, what is it that you can't do, Mark? And it is nothing. I can do anything. Give me an insurance problem, I'll solve it. That's that. It takes longer to do. It's not the same as doing tree care and casinos, but it keeps my insurance noodle wet. It keeps us, sharp with the whole marketplace, and it's fun to see how we're going to do that. But it really it's having a couple of different areas so that you're making yourself risk averse.
Yeah. That's fantastic advice, and it really helps. It reaffirms even something I heard from a very successful broker a few years back. Again, maybe you could comment on this briefly, but it doesn't have to be this exact. But he said a very similar thing. He said, what we try to build, it isn't this perfect, is I love to have 40% in niche 1A, 30% in niche 1B, and 30% in what I call general accounts, which means I just write them because I want to.
Exactly.
I just want to.
That's the same thing.
Yeah. And I was like, that's really interesting. He goes, yeah, because I think it's important to have a focus, but you can have some fun and while you're doing it. So
exactly.
You hit that perfect. Well, Mark, again, thanks so much for being on this. This was great. I took a ton of notes. I know leaders, producers, anybody in this profession can get so much out of what you just said. And although so many things would be considered, I'm putting in quotes here, by the way, basic, they're incredibly deep and powerful. And I think it's been obviously the catalyst to your success. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing that today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.